Topic 3, LO 3.2 MARPOL Annex 1 to 6 Mandatory Regulation Legislative Requirements. Mandatory regulation in the context of MARPOL International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships. The term mandatory regulations refer to a set of rules and standards that must be followed by ships to ensure compliance with the convention. These regulations are not optional, they are obligatory and binding for all ships falling under the scope of MARPOL. The mandatory regulation cover various aspects of pollution prevention and environmental protection in the maritime industry. Each MARPOL annex addresses specific types of pollution and outlines regulation these to prevent or minimize these pollutants. The mandatory nature of these regulations emphasizes the commitment of the international community to safeguard the marine environment and reduce the impact of shipping activities. 1. MARPOL Annex 1 Oil Pollution Prevention. Mandatory regulations focus on the regulation for oil tankers, oil record books, oil discharge, monitoring equipment, shipment, oil pollution emergency plans. Number 2. MARPOL Annex 2 Noxious liquid substances. Mandatory regulation addresses the prevention of the pollution by noxious liquid substances carried in bulk. This includes regulations for the construction and equipment of ships, the categorization of substances, and procedures for discharge. Number 3. MARPOL Annex 3 Harmful substances in the package form. Mandatory regulations cover the prevention of pollution by harmful substances in package from this includes labeling, package, and documentation requirements for the transport of packaged dangerous goods. Number 4. MARPOL Annex 4 Sewage Pollution Prevention. Mandatory regulations focus on preventing pollution from the sewage by setting standards for sewage treatment system discharge criteria and the implementation of shipboard marine pollution emergency plans. Number 5. MARPOL Annex 5 Garbage Pollution Prevention. Mandatory regulation that address the prevention of pollutions by garbage from ships. These regulations include requirements for the disposal of various types of garbage, special areas, and the management of ship-generated garbage. MARPOL Annex 6 Air Pollution Prevention. Mandatory regulations aim to prevent air pollution from ships by setting standards for emission of sulfur oxides, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter. The annex also includes energy-efficient measures. Compliance with these mandatory regulations is essential for the ship operators, and failure to adhere to them can result in penalties and consequences, including fines, detention, and restrictions on ships' movements. The goal is to ensure a uniform and high standards of environmental protection across the international maritime community. The legislative requirements in the context of MARPOL International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships. The term legislative requirements refers to the specific laws and regulations that have been established by the contracting parties to implement and enforce the provisions of MARPOL Annexes 1 to 6. These legislative requirements are the domestic laws enacted by individual countries to give effect to the international standards and obligations set out in MARPOL. Number 1. MARPOL Annex 1 Oil Pollution Prevention. Legislative requirements may include national regulations governing the construction and equipment of oil tankers, oil spill response plan, requirement for oil record books, and penalties for violation related to oil pollution prevention. Number 2. MARPOL Annex 2 Noxious Liquid Substances. Countries enact legislative requirements to ensure compliance with the regulations outlined in Annex 2. These may be laws related to the construction and equipment of ships carrying noxious liquid substances, procedures for the issuance of International Pollution Prevention Certificate, NLS certificate, and penalty for non-compliance. Number 3. MARPOL Annex 3 Harmful substances in package form. Legislative requirements, implementation of regulation related to the packing, labeling, and documentation of packaged harmful substances. Countries may establish laws to enforce proper handling, stowage, and transport of dangerous goods. Number 4. MARPOL Annex 4 Sewage Pollution Prevention. Legislative requirement in this context involve national laws that translate the standards and guidelines outlined in Annex 4. Into domestic regulations. This includes law governing the construction and use of sewage treatment system, discharge criteria, and the implementation of shipboard marine pollution emergency plans. Number 5, MARPOL Annex 5, Garbage Pollution Prevention. Legislative requirements encompass domestic laws addressing the prevention of pollution by garbage from ships. This includes regulation on the disposal of different types of garbage, requirements for garbage management plans, and penalties for violations. Number 6, MARPOL Annex 6, Air Pollution Prevention. Legislative requirements related to Annex 6 involve domestic laws addressing air pollution prevention from ships. This includes regulation on sulfur oxide and nitrogen oxide emissions into use, compliant fuels, and implement of energy efficiency measures. Countries as contracting parties to MARPOL are responsible for incorporating the convention requirement into their national legal frameworks. This process involves the establishment of legislative measures that ensure effective implementation, monitoring, and enforcement of the pollution prevention standard outlined in MARPOL Annexes 1 to 6. These legislative requirements contribute to the global effort to protect the marine environment from various forms of pollution originating from shipping activities.